So, kind of appears like we're, I don't want to say getting to the twilight of your ARCA career, but your ARCA starts,
yeah,
fewer far between.
Only a couple here and there, yeah. And in our future, we still have that in our mind. We're never going to be done with ARCA. It's always feels like home to us. It's been such a great series over the years. But yeah, we had a lot of fun doing it. I will say we didn't do. Never a full schedule, like I said, up to 12 races.
Why no full schedule?
It was just a budget thing, to be honest with you. We probably could have afforded to do all the races, but then we wouldn't have been as competitive, to be honest with you. We did a lot of testing and stuff to achieve what we did. I mean, we were roughly a third of the time we were top 10, 31 I think it is, top 10s and 90 starts. A lot of top 5s, I think 10 or 11 top 5s, so a lot of thirds, a couple seconds. It was awesome, and still want to go back and try to win one, though, to be straight up.
Of course.
Yeah, there was a lot that we let slip away, or we should have won, should have, would have, could have, but it's racing, but kind of just got it. I wanted to do something different again, but still
Not
motorsports, it was just like
Mr. Eclectic here.
kind of had an interest in road racing since a long time ago. Trans Am Series, for example, was huge in the mid-90s. I mean, they were on TV live all the time. They were doing street courses, Long Beach. I was like, wow, this is incredible. It's like a stock car on steroids. Like, incredible, So kind of always had that in the back of my head since I was a little kid, to be honest with you. Like, someday, that'd be pretty cool.
Run on a street course or whatever.
Yeah. So
legally.
It kind of came up to where it's like, wow, Trans Am is starting the series, TA2 they call it, which is basically an ASA car. It's the old Howe ASA cars. They were all Howe cars. At least they were all Howe center sections, the ASA series. They all came from Chaz Howe. Some guys had their own front and rear clip, but for the most part, they're all Howe cars, and that's where it kind of started from. Butch Miller in 2010 ran an ASA car in Trans Am. They just classed it as ASA. It was just TA. And then there's just this ASA, whatever. It was just him and another guy from Wisconsin. I can't remember his name. But anyways, that wasn't TA2 yet. That's what started the evolution. And Chaz started building these cars for at the time called the Swedish Camaro Cup, Swedish Camaro Cup. Where they were all standard Camaros. He built all of them, and it was a pretty cool deal. And then got even more hooked, went out and visited Chaz. At that time, we became members at Autobahn Country Club, which is right down the road from here in Joliet, hour away. Pretty cool little road course. It's like a golf course, but you're running race cars at it and not golf balls. It's very, very cool atmosphere. And they do have some professional races there at times. In fact, there's a SCCA race coming up at the end of the year, October here soon.
Oh, wow.
So we were members there, got even more interested in road racing and kind of looking at where we're going to go, and we can go to IMSA or, IMSA's street cars. And you know what? All of road racing in America at this point were just production street cars. All of them, except for Trans Am Series, the full-blown tube frame race cars. Just hooked instantly. Went out and, went to Chaz's shop, saw what he was doing, and he basically started the TA2 series with Trans Am and putting out these cars. And then Mike Cope come along and he started putting out cars, and then before you know it, there's a lot of them. When we first got into it, there was about 12 or 13, 15 at most. The last race we were at, Nashville, there was 41. So it's come a long way in the evolution. But basically, I was the first oval guy to go into that and go that direction.
It's kind of the other way around.
Yeah, it is.
Usually.
Compared to most, right.
Yeah.
Because of the car, though. It was like, well, this is a stock car. We're just going to be turning left and right. It's a late model, basically. ASA car is where they started out as. They basically evolved into The chassis now are honestly, they're more like a super late model than an ASA car. They've evolved that much.
Wow.
And but that's the growing pains of anything new. So you gotta, it's just the way that it is. But it was fun growing with the series. We had several manufacturers. We ran all three at times because the rules were changing a lot as far as trying to make the series grow. At first, trying to get Dodge in, they had quite the advantage in torque, so we immediately switched one of our Chevrolets to a Dodge. And at first, I did all of the driving, and then it turned into where I had met Adam, in Mooresville.
Adam Andretti.
Adam Andretti. He did a couple of kart races with us, and it was just like, wow, like the talent was just incredible. It's like, why is this guy not holding the steering wheel for anybody? But he's got like the most famous last name in motorsports, tons of talent. Like, we need to do something. He was my pretty good friend at that point. So convinced my dad. I says, hey, if we want to step up our road racing program, I think I got the guy that can really help us and be maybe our main driver while I kind of catch up and do some company stuff, which I did a lot at that time. We had just got a new customer, Stoughton, in Stoughton, Wisconsin, Stoughton Trailers. So I spent a lot of time up there, 9 months. Actually, I spent up there 4 days a week for 9 months. So like during that time, it was kind of like I couldn't be a full-time driver and do that. But I still wanted to like get things going. Mm-hmm. So I was like doing a lot of testing at Autobahn. We did a limited schedule with Adam in 2013. Then we just went full bore and went full at it for a championship run in 14, 15, and 16. Come up short, finished second in the points, 14 and 15. Most people that have been around that series know it was pretty much a political battle, to be honest with you. I mean, it's no secret that it was kind of taken from us. There was a few times where they took points from us. It was pretty ridiculous, to be honest with you. And they've even admitted it since. That's just at the time they felt that was the right call to make. But still a lot of fun. He won Rookie of the Year. And then at that time I still did partial event. I did a partial schedule, selected events. Was on podium with him. That was pretty cool in 2014.
Right.
Cameron Lawrence won the race, but Adam finished second. I finished third. Later that year, I became the first person to podium in the same season, or at all, podium in TA2 and TA, because I ran TA at the end of it. We bought a Trans Am full-blown TA car for the end of that season. So that record's been beaten since. I mean Tony Ave, he's won now in TA and TA2.
Oh, Tony Ave, he's another guy. Didn't he run? Tony Ave.
He ran a little bit in ARCA here and there, and just
full-blown
road racer. I mean, he's got tons of success. And still to this day, still hauls ass, still wins races. Won the Detroit street race last time we were at Detroit in 19.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's still got it, and he helped the Trans Am series a lot. Like Tony Abe was like the guy that really was the guy that knew what the series needed to go forward. Whereas you had a bunch of guys that were shareholders that had the money, but he had the brain power. He didn't have the money to make it happen. He was just the guy that. He was a shareholder and had the knowledge to make TA2 and make TA what it is today. And the series always went under. They didn't run any races in 2006, I think it was. From 1966 to now, they've only not been on the racetrack 1 year. And then people like Tony saved that, and Jim Durhag put a lot of money into it and helped save the series. So. But at the time we were racing against shareholders, though, that our biggest competition was people that also had stock in Trans Am, which I don't think is fair in any form of motorsports, because we're all human, and you're gonna treat people differently if they've got money in it, So that's not the case so much anymore.
Over the people that
Yeah, it's not so much the case anymore. That's been all worked out of the series. Like I said, that's part of the growing pains of anything new. And this is all a brand new thing. TA2's first season was 2012, first full season, their first season. And we went to a few races just to get
acclimated, see if you liked it.
Yeah, get a stopwatch out and knowing, hey, we're going to be testing here in a few weeks. Let's see where we would have been if we were to run this race. We really paid very close attention to where I didn't want to throw Adam in the middle of it and be like 10th. You know, I
Right.
wanted to like win out of the gate, which we actually did. He won in his second start. So it was pretty powerful. He won in all manufacturers. He was the first guy and the only guy to this day to win in all 3 manufacturers that were available in Trans Am 2. So that was pretty cool. And that wasn't quite in the same season. That was in 2 different seasons we did that. But like I said, as the rules changed and certain manufacturers were favored at times, we just decided to change bodies and change drive lines, you know, keep up. And it worked, which I've done that in ARCA. I don't know if you noticed by some of the pictures where we were like Ford, and then now we're Chevrolet, and now we're back to Ford. It's like just
And your
big,
Cadillac,
you know,
and
running
your
Bobby
Corvette.
Jones's Dodge. Then it's like, what are you doing? You know, it's just,
Right, ARCA, right.
and I can't say that that ever actually was like, yeah, that was the thing to do. That really worked out. And not really. It really didn't at times. It was like they were all so close. Chevrolet, Ford, Dodge, they're all pretty close. Except for when Toyota come into ARCA. They were way out. That was way, they had way more horsepower than anybody else. And that was just the Toyota Dodge engine that was presented, you know.
Well, I'm surprised that, you know, you've driven all those cars. I mean,
Yeah.
the pictures we looked through.
And
I
it
mean,
worked out in Trans Am is what I was getting ready to say. Is like, oh, I did that then. It was like, that probably wasn't maybe the best idea, but switching around manufacturers worked out for us in TA2.
But I'm surprised you weren't getting calls from different owners going, okay, well, they're doing this with the Toyota. What can we do with the Chevy? And you
Yeah,
know.
it was, at the time it was a tough deal. It was just the package that TRD brought to the NASCAR ARCA thing was, I'm sure most people will agree, it was just
I'm sure they didn't let
way
you.
too. It was way too much. And the first generation NASCAR TRD engines, NASCAR said no way, no. Those engines ended up in ARCA.
Wow.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah, people like Eddie Sharp with the Red Bull deal. They had 900 horsepower and everyone else had 800. So,
Well, I'm sure you went sitting on a lot of meetings, but I mean, you know, I'm sure you still could see some nuances between the different manufacturers while you were running ARCA. So, like I say, I'm surprised they didn't, you know, get a hold of you. But you know,
it
like
was
you
all
say,
what was going on. It was like at one point we had a pretty good deal with engine rental programs through Yates. And that's where the Joey Knuckles thing came in, where he helped us because of that. He was, you know, he kind of babysat the engine. And David Lewis, another guy from Roush, Yates Roush, that great engine guy, and he was there a lot. And we had an awesome relationship. We were on like the A program, to where usually the A program was pretty expensive, and they charged us the C program price, to be honest with you. So that's why we were Fords for during that time. Chevrolets on the short tracks is just, you know, we had SP2s from the past, just kind of using up good stuff, you know.
right.
That's kind of why that was.
Well, here you're on this big, you know, TA2 role. I assume I'm about to mention the right series, and you know, you're back running more now that the company commitments have, you know, kind of slowed down a little bit, and then 2018 and the Cadillac rolls around.
Yeah.
I don't mean to laugh.
well,
it's not funny, but
yeah, that was-
meaning,
Yeah, that
you
was
know.
pretty bad. We'll go back to that in a minute. But yeah, that burned my hand pretty bad, and it was a pretty ugly time where I thought I was done again. Where I still have pretty severe nerve damage in my hand. Where
Oh, is that right?
Some racetracks that are very technical, where I don't get a chance to move my hand on the straightaway, it can be pretty brutal. But yeah, I mean, we kind of. I mean, honestly, they looked at me as far as what to do a lot of times. It was, I kind of helped them not write the rules, but they asked me a lot of like, hey, what should we do here? And I'm like, hey, you know, no carbon fiber except for the seat, or you should do this. And they listened to everything that I told them except for get rid of the wing. You know, and to this day, they get all kinds of crap from people like Mike Cope, who's a stock car guy. You know, he's probably told Trans Am 100 times, can we please off this wing? Even like Formula Drift, for Christ's sake, they've gotten rid of their tuner wings.
Really?
Knowing
The
that
Drift
it
guys
just
got rid of
looks funny on a muscle car. Straight up. I can't think of anybody that would want to buy a Corvette off the showroom floor, or a Camaro or a Dodge Challenger,
wing.
and go stick a big wing on the back of it without looking funny.
Well, NASCAR originally even admitted back when they put the wing on their car that was for the kids, the drifter guys.
Exactly.
Now even the drifter guys don't.
Now
want
they're
it.
running spoilers.
So right.
You know, they really are. So maybe, you know what, they might do that someday and just maybe one day we'll just do a race and just, you know what, everyone take your wings off and let's go out there and see what happens. You know?
Even if they don't like it.
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
But no, they really listened to a lot of the stuff on to make the car.
That's refreshing, huh?
Yeah,
It's
it was like a whole other
you.
thing that I was a part of, and I didn't have any skin in it. I didn't have any money in it or anything like that. But they looked to me for a lot of answers in the beginning of that series, so things didn't get out of control. I mean, I was even guilty of when we hung a Dodge body on it. On our older car, there was no templates. None. There's no templates.
Wow.
I mean, it was like, okay. I mean, how far do we go here without them telling me to put in the truck?
Yeah.
Because I have had that happen in ARCA, where there was a
Yeah.
few times where, as at Toledo one year, or I'll go back to that, where I literally didn't get to race it. We went way too far. The car fit every template, but it was like, what are you guys doing? And most cars evolved into that. Twisted sisters and stuff like that. With
Right.
the right side of the.
Oh, yeah.
The tail. It looks like
Way.
someone hit you in the left rear and knocked the tail over, 3 feet. So
Like at a cartoon.
yeah, and part of that was from the Bob Shack days, where it's like, wait a minute, like they have limited templates at the short tracks. They literally only used certain templates at the short tracks.
Right.
That's all they brought.
Right.
I was like, okay,
Let's try it there.
this is what we're gonna do. And when we showed up, everyone was like, oh God. And it was with a car that was an old Bob cars. It was an old Bush car that he had named Stretch because they stretched the front end. So now it's a Bush car with a short back end, and you add 5 inches to the front of this thing, so everything looks all offset. And we put the body as far back as we could, and the wheel openings are far forward to get the fenders sticking way out, and it was all twisted up, and it was just ahead of its time, to be honest with you. I mean, almost every car looked like that a few years later, seriously. But I said, what do we do? Put 100 pounds on it? No. Bobby Thompson, nope. I said, 200 pounds, nope. 400. They said, you can't put enough weight on that car to let you. We can't listen to all these other people, the slack. I mean, I even had friends of mine like, dude, why? What are you thinking? It's like, well, it fits the template. It just didn't. I mean, visually, it was like, take that Batmobile, and Batmobile. It was painted black. It had a chartreuse chassis. It was like, they literally said, let's take that Batmobile and just we don't ever want to see that race car again. Like literally, we got home, cut the body off of it.
Wow.
That's,
Well, you tried.
yeah,
Good way
yeah.
to
So
try.
all of this stuff was going through my head, where it's like, okay, whoa, no template. So
Yeah.
I mean, we did it. We sucked the doors way in, did all kinds of cool stuff. They made us change it, which I knew they would eventually. But at that time, I was like, look, we need to keep people like myself in check. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
we need to have
Yeah.
and now they do. They have templates, and they have 5-star does the bodies, which they do a great job.
Because you don't want to turn into remember those late models from the late 70s, early 80s. The noses are 1.5 foot out,
Right.
And the back wings are 2 feet,
Yeah.
or 5 feet, or whatever back.
And at this
You gotta
time,
have
Mike Hope is starting to get pretty serious in Trans Am, and of course,
He was serious wherever
comes from single track
he
racing.
was serious wherever he went.
So he's doing, of course, he's doing some stuff with wedging the doors and having the nose as close to the ground as you can, and just getting the wing up, and all the stuff to make a race car go fast. The geometry, and he was the first one to be on bump stops and coil binding and all that
Oh,
stuff.
you're doing that in Trans Am too?
Yeah,
Wow.
we were until they outlawed it, because
Oh,
it
okay.
got pretty technical. Although, honestly, now it's just as technical to not bump stop and not coil bind and be almost there, but not. That's honestly just as hard, in my opinion. I think they should let us go back to a bump stop thing, but had to put it in check. Like it's going to get crazy if we don't. So I actually,
Yeah.
even as a competitor going for a championship, helped the series say, look, we need to do templates. Don't worry about this. That's not worth much speed or any at all, and you should be focused on this because it's a lot of speed. And some guys started to run their front splitter, which is supposed to be, they didn't have rules on it. It just said it has to be, minimum 2 inches off the ground, maximum 6 inches. So some guys would do 2 inches in the front, 6 inches in the back, and
Yeah.
now you've made yourself a Venturi of a lot of downforce. So of course, okay, now the splitter's got to be level within a 1/2 inch, blah blah blah. It can be minimum 2 or minimum 3, maximum 6, but it has to be level-ish within a 1/2 inch. Wow. So I helped them with a lot of that stuff, so it didn't get way out of control. 'Cause it really did. It started to, and we were one of the culprits to make this happen because. No one said that we couldn't, and it was such a new series to where they didn't really know any better, honestly, because it's road racing.
Right.
Not realizing that a lot of this oval track stuff, aerodynamics and geometry, it can really help you road racing quite a bit. You basically have 2 right fronts on the car, geometry-wise. We'll call it that, so, and 2 right rears, and you're mainly turning right. So that was a lot of fun in that deal, helping the series get going. Like I said, running it for a championship with Adam 3 years. During that time, a lot of NASCAR kids started coming in, and to be honest with you, a lot of them came to me, and I pointed them in the Mike Cope direction or some other direction, like, hey, this is the guy, you go talk to this guy for a rental program. At the time, I wanted to do a rental program, but it just, like drive with Andretti, and we can make a lot of money, and advertise like, oh, come be Adam Andretti's teammate, and blah, blah, blah. And it never really fit our style. Adam's not really that way, even though he would have done it, of course. If we paid him, sure, he'll do it. Just it wasn't our style of that. Like, we never charged Adam a dime to drive our race cars. We actually gave him, percentages of the purse money. And we did that. We continued that tradition as we went on, going back to 2018. So I'm getting ready to, and then this is after we had, like I said, quite a bit of success with myself a little bit and a lot with Adam, the Trans Am. 18, like, okay, you know what? Trans Am's doing a deal where they have TA2 and TA2 North and a TA2 West championship. I was like, wow, that's a pretty cool idea. So there's 6 races on the schedule for a TA2 North. I was like, cool, we can go for a championship and not run a full schedule. This is perfect. Because at this time, I'm still a little bit still dabbling and getting involved in the company, doing what I can when I can do it, just different miscellaneous stuff, So it's like, cool, I'm not going to be on the road every weekend, because that's not going to happen, because I need to be here and get more comfortable here. Perfect. So went actually to a test at the local track, Blackhawk, and had an issue where during the practice, one of the oil lines, it was all brand new stuff, by the way. We redid the whole damn car, new body, new everything, new driveline. Something happened. There was a brand new line, but it had a little issue where it sprayed fluid, and it sprayed it, and it ran all the way down because it's coated with stuff. We got the heat shielding over it. It must have run down that, and like the last ½ inch of the oil line didn't have the heat shielding on it, so it came out there, sprayed on the headers, big fire. And it was one of the first Cadillac bodies that had kind of a recall-ish thing, resin material that they found out through a couple of different incidents that it was using a very flammable resin that went up like extremely fast. That body manufacturer since then has corrected the issue. We just happen to have one of 3 bodies that were put out there with this wrong stuff. The other one was one of Albe's cars that caught on fire at Road America, actually, that same year, or a couple years before that, or a year before that. Anyways, go there, caught on fire, big fire. And as I'm climbing out, I'm fine. I can't see anything, of course. It's just smoke everywhere. So undoing the window net, and as I'm undoing the window net, flames went up the glove and just burned the glove like onto my hand, and it was just melted. I thought I was gonna lose my hand. It was pretty ugly.
And that was 2018?
Bubbled up. 2018, May of 18.
Well, it looks good now.
Yeah, I mean, severe nerve damage. Like I said, if I don't get a straightaway to flex these days, I'm screwed. I mean, the last race we were at, for example, to touch on that, was Groton, Michigan. And if it was a Trans Am length race, I wouldn't have been able to do it. The track is so physical. There's a very short straightaway to kind of get my things moving, and then it's just so much going on in so little time to where it was, thank God it was a club race, because my hand fell completely asleep when it was almost over, So I still have severe nerve damage, still work on that a lot. It still shakes and cracks. If I move it, I can hear it cracking in there and all kinds of weird stuff. But so 18, we had already put together okay, we're set to do this championship run. At the time, my wife had already made all the adjustments on the road, the logistics of it, the crew. Main guy, Steve Ray, he had all the cars, this is the car we're doing here. We had 2 really good cars. We're going to do this car at this race, and some of the races were back-to-back. There's actually 2 of them that were back-to-back. So we decided, okay, instead of wearing ourselves out, we just run this car this weekend and that car the following weekend, so it's fresh with our limited help, Had everything in place, but now I can't drive. at the time, we were talking a lot with Ernie Francis Jr. We called him EFJ. I think we were the first people to call him EFJ. I'm not positive on that, but we were the first to put EFJ, on the race car anyway. So we talked to him. It's like, hey man, you want to do TA2? It's like, yeah, sure. So it was another no charge deal where we didn't charge them a dime. They were already at the racetrack doing their, TA run, which they've won, I think 6 championships in a row now, something like that. It's insane. The kid's just incredible. And I knew immediately. I mean, we went to a test of him at Autobahn. He broke the track record his 3rd time by. And I mean, I'm like, hey, man, you looked really good in, turn 12 or whatever. He's like, which one is that? He'd never seen the racetrack, didn't know which turn number I was talking about, but broke the track record. I mean, beat like legitimate track records of people that have like really hauled ass there and brought TA2 cars there and tested, and it was, the data was like, we thought that like a computer was driving the race car. So we did that with Ernie. He won 3 races out of 6. And in TA2 North, there were a couple of them were 3rd overall, 2nd overall, or like 5th overall, but did that. Won the TA2 North Championship in 18. During that time, we did a race with Bill Elliott at Mid-Ohio, which they were actually teammates for that race. Ernie Francis was in the 44, and Bill Elliott, we got the 9, which was pretty cool that weekend. And they both did very well. We ended up, Bill, that's a whole nother story, to where he was one of the best guys to work with ever, as far as even at 63 or whatever years old he was then, just so much talent, so calm, and it's just what he does for a living.
63 at the time.
Went to a test with Bill, Mid-Ohio, 2018, and actually they flew there. They used one of Hendrick's jets. Chase and Bill flew in, and then we tested, and he was right there. He was like, wow, I mean, you're right there running times, solid top 10 in a very competitive series. Very competitive. I mean, Justin Haley at the time, he's won in Cup Series and Busch Series and trucks. He never won a TA2 race. Wow. Ty Dillon literally said one weekend at Mid-Ohio when he was renting a car in 2013 or 14, they asked him what his chances were like in the Xfinity race. He goes, what his chances were like in the Trans Am race. He said, actually, I think I have better chances in the Xfinity race, because the TA2 race, I think, is going to be harder to win. He literally said that, because it's the truth. I mean, the TA2 got to be extremely competitive, to where it is right there on competition level with ARCA. The money competition-wise, not quite as far as Xfinity or trucks, but there's a few examples, that were in there. Tyler Reddick was in TA2, Christopher Bell. I mean, there's all kinds of top names that were in there that they did well, sure, but they didn't win.
But do you think they're also doing
Ty
that?
Ty Gibbs, he finished 3rd, I think, this year at Road America.
Do you think they're also doing that because now, Cup has gone more toward, gotten a lot
It's
more
exactly
road
what
courses?
it's exactly right. That's why it went that way. So and going back to the Chase thing, so Chase spent the day there, hanging out, and I had known him from a while back, from the ASA, actually, from the 2010 ASA thing. He was the guy to beat. And he was he was 13 or 14, but he looked like he was 8 or 9.
Yeah,
he really
was a
did.
kid.
It was like, wow, that kid's on the pole. He's really, and almost every race, pole and win. He just dominated the series. He didn't run for points, or he would have won the championship. But that's where I first met Chase, and now we're going back to 8 years later. I see him again. He remembered me, which was very cool. Because how does he remember? I mean, I'm just one of thousands of people that he's met or more. So,
and he should be in the Cup Series by then, in 18, isn't he?
Correct,
His
yeah.
dad was driving.
He was right. In fact, so at the end of that day, Bill, it was a 2-day thing to where we did like a half a day the first day, and then the next day we had an afternoon. It was just the time slot we were given. It was hard to get in there for a test. So we tested the afternoon of one day, and then the morning of the next day. So there was an overnight stay. So Chase had to go test somewhere, I think it was MIS. So Chase's first time flying alone, flying solo, was from Mid-Ohio to MIS that weekend in 18. And he talks about that.
Which is not too far, but far enough to do it on your own.
And then he came back and picked up his dad the next day, and
Wow.
It was very cool. It was just it was epic weekend. He qualified good. We run good. We had engine trouble at the end. Just something weird. We really don't know exactly what happened. Yeah, we think something got caught up in the belts and just broke a belt, basically, oil pump belt. And even blowing up and not finishing, he was still like, oh man, that was just so much fun. Yeah, he was, and he hardly didn't break a sweat. I mean, literally.
We'd like to be in that boat, huh?
Sometimes, yeah, right. After qualifying, I'm like, hey man, I'm getting ready for the race, and so I'm like, hey, you want me to hook up your air hose or something? He's like, well, I'm not sure if I brought my helmet that has the hookup on it. Okay, I'm like, you want a cool shirt? He's like, well, what's that? I'm like, I've never worn one. I've only seen them because really at the time a cool shirt, they've come a long way since 18, by the way. I had the old style cool shirt where you have a cooler. And they don't last for like a cup race, obviously. They do now because they're little electronic Freon units or whatever. I don't know. But at the time, it's like, obviously those don't last. So he had never used a cool shirt because it just wasn't a thing in cup. They don't last.
Right.
It's hot water halfway through, So we put that on. He's just like, oh man, I had to turn it down. He's like, it's cold. So he loved it, but he didn't even break a sweat. Got out of the car. We all sweat in pit road watching him more than he had. And we still owe him one. I talked to him randomly from time to time, like when we acquired that Bill Elliott car. I had to immediately text him like, hey, look what I got. This is pretty cool. And he's like, hey, that's vintage racing. I'm like, that's the museum car. But we still owe him one. He knows it. We know it. He does some SVRA stuff once in a while.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll do something. I'm pretty sure. But that was just a lot of fun to do that while my hand was still healing. Sometime during that season, I tried to drive again at Indianapolis because it was Indianapolis. I got a long straightaway. I could stretch it up. No, I couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. Towards the end of the season, we had Greg Sachs in the car. That was fun. And I met Greg Sachs with the Bobby Jones thing. I actually spotted for Greg a few times. Went down to Daytona with him. I went to Michigan with him. And he's a great guy. And it was like, I don't even know how or what came across me. It was like we were going to Daytona, and this is at the end of the season now, where now I'm finally healed up, and I'm gonna bring my TA car to Daytona and have some fun. It's like, well, while we're going, we got this perfectly good TA2 car. Our North points at that time was already over because this is a Daytona race, so we had already sealed up our 18 championship. And I don't even know how or why. I was just like, well, we're going to go be in Daytona. Call Greg Sachs. He lives in Daytona, right there. I gotta get him a hotel room. He's already, that'd be kind of cool. And brought out to my dad, like, hey, Dad, what do you think about Greg Sachs driving? He's like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. Sure, and he did okay. It's like I said, stacked fields in TA2. Where, I mean, if you're a half a second off, you're 20th. You're not top 10 or 5. That was a lot of fun working with him. It was tons of fun, And so then going into 2019, TA and TA2 still had a north-south thing, and of course a west. So we went, let's go at it again. At that point, we had only done a limited schedule with Adam. He got pretty busy doing his regular job, where he's a trainer. He goes all over the country and does.
Wow. You
name it, he's driven it. Like it's like literally, he's probably driven 1,000 different types of cars. Maybe not 1,000, but he's done it all. Right, drive a paperclip if it drove. So he got, a little more interested. Like, hey, we got this, limited schedule thing where it's like 5 or 6 races. I think it was down to 5 races in 19. So we can go for another championship, but not be as busy. He's like, cool. So I'm going to do the same thing. It's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you're going to go for a TA North Championship. I'm going to go for a TA2 North Championship. Sounds like fun, cool. And we pulled it off. We both pulled it off. He won TA and I won TA2 North Championship in 19. He won a couple races that year. I won a couple. Like I said, when I say win, I think I was fourth or 5th overall at Detroit, which I was first of the TA2 North. So, like when Ernie finished 3rd at Detroit in his first start with us, he finished 3rd at Detroit, but was TA2 North winner. So it's like, cool, now you get 2 trophies. Why not? You get one TA2 North and a 3rd like overall. Yeah, it was kind of cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which is in the background is all these glass trophies. They're all Trans Am, 1st, 2nd, or 3rd.
They definitely like squiggly lines there.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of them look kind of the same, so I had to make them to where they weren't next to each other.
Right.
Make them look as different as possible. But yeah, a lot of fun doing that. And in the 19 deal, that was really cool. Then COVID. We didn't COVID in 2020. There was still limited racing going on. We didn't do anything. We that was it. We could have done it. It was just the wrong message to send, mainly to our employees. We'll put it that way. When you got almost 50 employees, and you got to lay off a couple of them, and now they're all working from home, and everyone's panicking, like what's going on? It's like, oh, we're gonna go racing. It just wasn't in our cars. My dad is like, that doesn't send the right message. If we're going down the road racing, spending money, and we've got people laid off, and the rest of the company is forced to work at home, and it just doesn't seem right. And he was 100% right.
A lot of companies don't think like that, though. So
so we sat that whole year out. We watched races and just did a lot of stuff around here. Put the die-cast shelf together during COVID, and just different, some of these mannequins and just different stuff around the museum. Yeah, so it wasn't bad as far as it was a setback, of course, for everybody. It was terrible, but it wasn't like, I'm not racing, like boo-hoo. I was never like that about it. It was like, hey, this is what we have to do. Mm-hmm. I never even asked about, hey, let's go do this or do that. Mm-hmm. But as soon as things started shaping up, that sounds like, hey, let's get back in, let's do some more stuff. And my dad agreed, we need to get the flow, and the company's, everything's doing well. Everyone's back to work,
something
and
to root for.
Yeah, and a lot of the people that work for us, they get the emails like from last weekend when we won at Groton. They get the email, we won, and I'll show them like a 1-lap video, and they're like, oh, that's really cool. And there's a lot of interest in that. And we have a lot of people at the company, have been at this company for many, many years. Some for like 30 years. I think there's 3 people here that have been here for at least 30 years,
wow.
Which is like the whole time.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Wow.
So they're important people. They're shareholders of the company. They got to be happy too.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So we didn't do anything then. Now we're getting back going at it again. It's a lot of fun. Doing kind of a limited schedule. This year we did a limited schedule in TA2. In TA. Ran with Boris Said. The last race that we were in TA2 was with Boris at Nashville. That was awesome, and that's kind of a new beginning for us to do something with Boris a little bit in the TA2 program. And we got that going because our TA car, his car builder Pancho Weaver, we kind of teamed up with, and this car is a Pancho Weaver chassis, full-blown Pancho Weaver car. Actually, we bought a turnkey race car from him. And it was one that at the time Boris had already won with. We had purchased it and
so he's familiar with it.
Won right out of the gate with a Dakota. Adam, first start in that car, won. It was like, wow, great. And like I said, we're kind of like teammates with Boris. So that's kind of how the whole Boris thing started. Great guy to work with. I mean, the knowledge. I mean, everyone knows how what he's done in road racing, but it's wow. Just incredible to work with.
Just keeps up on your game now too.
Exactly, it just keeps us going better and better and better. And that was tons of fun. And running with him as basically a teammate in TA this year. We did a little bit of that where I ran that car. He ran the other Pancho car. Been going to Road America since 13, and I still learned by following him. It's like, hey, you want to follow me a little bit in practice? I'm like, yeah, cool. And I'm like, I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing. But yeah, sure, I would love to follow you, right? And it's like, wow, like I just learned something, and I've been here a lot. Like, I kind of felt like an idiot. Like, dude, like you turned into the kink. Like I thought you were crashing, and now you just turned in like later than I ever wanted to, because you can't even see where you're going there. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, you just got and told me the whole spiel. Like, pretty proud. I was like, wow. We got to do something with you. And that's when it all started. Like, we need to do something. This is going to be a lot of fun. So that's where that went. And we're currently we're going to go forward a little bit. We're going to do a partial schedule. We're getting a new car built for TA2. The one we had in Nashville is kind of an older car, heavier car, a little outdated. Decent street course car. It wasn't quite as good as we thought it was going to be. He ended up finishing 8th. Not terrible in a stacked field. Like I said, there's 42 cars. I think 15 of them could have won, honestly. But yeah, We have plans to do like a limited schedule with him in TA2. I'm going to run a little bit as well in TA. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that in a pretty laid back, non-points schedule. They don't have a TA2 or a TA North anymore. Wish they did, because we would probably be looking towards that. But maybe they will again. But it was just fun working with different people. Even like going way back to where I remember I was at Toledo, and this was after I had a wrist injury at Daytona, and I'm going out the gate at Toledo, it's out the back gate, and I made a hard one of these, and I was like, pop! I was like, I'm like, great, just re-broke my wrist. You know, and my buddy with me, Josh Richardson, was going to spot. I was like, hey, you got your stuff with you? He's like, no. I'm like, well, we need to go get you some stuff. We gathered up some stuff, and he drove for me.
That's why I drove it.
Yeah, exactly. That's why Josh drove for that race. And then the following weekend was Milwaukee, and he drove on Milwaukee and finished third. So that was pretty cool. And that kind of started the whole me having, because I had a broken wrist, so what am I going to do? I can't drive. But
looking for other
but
people.
I still was like, this is pretty cool. Because this is how I started, was watching.
Yeah.
And then when I was old enough to like turn a wrench, and they told me which way to turn it, and I was like 7 or 8, cool. And then the next thing's the impact, and I'm like 8 or 9. And so I already did plenty of stuff racing long before I held the steering wheel.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is pretty interesting. And that's where that started from a while. That was like 2005, actually, going back. So then since then, I was like, man, once in a while, let someone drive. One of my friends, Shane Wallace, let him tinker with my late model and just, farted around with stuff like that. And I always... And then getting back to spotting for people, spotting for Eric Darnell and David Reagan, stuff like that. It was fun. It was like, cool. A lot of people don't know, and I forgot to mention it, is that, so I spotted for David Reagan in like 2007, 8-ish for Bobby Jones. And then Greg Sachs later. But there was a year where David, we stayed in touch a lot. There's actually a story where I had to wear his helmet because right before qualifying went off, they found that my helmet was outdated. They were trying to do everything to get me from qualifying one year when I went through the room of doom 7 times with my car. And the next weekend they made a rule, I think, to where if you don't go through the second time, you're on the trailer. But it was comical-ish. But me and David were close to where he called me in 2010, and this is after I'd already moved up here. And he's like, hey, can you come spot for me at Daytona? I need a back straightaway spotter. I was like, oh, cool, yeah. So he did the whole 9 yards, flew me down and everything. And before the race, he's like, hey, man, he's like, the guy that I have spotting for me, he's good, but I can't get connected. He's like, I just can't. He's like, so what I want you to do is when he calls green flag, just take over. Just take the button over for the next 4 hours if you have to, unless the yellow comes out. If we're green flag, after he says green, 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 I want you to take over and just call the race until when the yellow comes out. I can't say nothing now. Okay, they're gonna talk about pit road stuff. As soon as they go green, his spotter is green, 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 and then I'm talking. It's plate racing. You're talking about the line, this line, and that line, and everything.
It's a lot of talk.
Ended up winning his first. I think he won 2 races at Daytona, but that was his first Cup win. And I had felt like I had just. I was like ecstatic.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I'm helping my friend win his first Cup race.
Yeah.
Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And it really was. It made my hair stand up. I mean, because that spotting.
Drive the truck.
People like Kyle Harvey will tell you, spotting for a restrictor plate race is probably more nerve-wracking than driving. Mm-hmm. It really, because driving you can see this and you're being told what's happening around you. Whereas when you're up there, you're like, you see every little thing. And how do you know what he needs to know? Like you see 12 different things happen, but you need to figure out what to say, when to say it.
It's a game of inches, but you're a mile away.
Yeah, it is intense. I don't think I blinked for 4 hours. But that was a lot of fun, and that's when I got interested in doing other stuff besides driving. That's where this whole Adam thing came across, and then, a lot of the people that they were all my friends, and I had a lot of respect for all of them. With Bill Elliott and with Boris now and Greg Sachs, it was a respect thing, and it was about having fun, and seeing what they could do as well. So, and with Adam, really really competitive. And recently he got a full-time ride in TA2. So I'm...
Oh, great.
People come up to me like, oh, what happened with you and Adam? I was like, Nothing. Like, he's got a full-time gig now, and
Yeah.
I'm excited for him. And he'll probably still drive our TA car at select events because he's already there at the racetrack.
Right.
So,
Just like Ernie, right?
yeah, right. So yeah, he's got a good shot at the championship next year. I think with the team he's driving for, a very solid organization, Doug Peterson.
Okay.
So, fully funded. I mean, they're the most funded team in the Trans Am garage. Period.
Wow.
Over TA2, everything. They have the biggest budget. And great people. So I'm excited for him about that. And I feel like I had a lot to do with that.
Absolutely.
I mean, even though he has the most famous name in motorsports, and he lived in Mooresville for 6-7 years, just the way he carries himself, you would never know if his last name's Anderson. Or I didn't know he was an Andretti till maybe a year after I had known him and hung out with him a lot, and watched a Super Bowl together in 07 when his team, the Colts, played the Bears. And it was like the first time I had watched a football game since like 1985 when the Bears were in the Super Bowl. Doing the Super Bowl shuffle, seriously. So I'm not exaggerating. The next football game I watched was in 2007 with Adam, watching that. And the Colts won, of course, and it was like, my team won. But we were pretty tight, and that was the day I found out who his last name was. I don't know how we were watching a race or something, race coverage after that. He's like, oh, it was my brother or whatever. I was like, what?
Yeah,
it's John. Like, okay. Like, I didn't know. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, dude, I didn't know your last name. He's that humble.
Wow. Which fits in with your guys' team.
Is possibly why things were the way they were. He didn't go around Mooresville like, I'm Adam Andretti, come hire me. He was more like he kept to himself. He worked at the Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Comfortable with it, yeah.
And that's just the way he was. He felt like he was good enough, and he is. He's got all the talent. I mean, there's another guy where the data looks like computers driving the race car. Just incredible. It blows my mind that he finally got his deal. Like, he got a full-time deal to where with a fully funded. When I say fully funded, we had the money to do it, but it was like we had to pick and choose a lot of our decisions. Whereas they can go to the wind tunnel, they can go to the pull-down rigs and chassis dyno and test every day. And I'm really happy for him, but it blows my mind that it took that long, I guess. But like I said, the way that he was kept to himself. Felt like someone would come to him one day, and that's how it went down. It never really happened for him in Mooresville. He moved back from Mooresville in 2008. So, and then, like I said, I had him come to a kart race with me in 2010, and I was like, wow, he's so good, and that's where all that started. And like I said, it's been fun for me to do. I had the most fun driving, but it's been almost as much fun going to the racetrack, being a part of it, being my cars, and watching people have success in them, and me being a part of that has been a lot of fun. Mainly with Adam, the Bill Elliott thing. We want to do that again one more time with Bill. The Boris, we're looking really forward to that. And the TA2 series is now at a place to where they've gotten a lot of stuff standardized now, to where it's pretty solid. The competition level is unbelievable. I mean, it really is. I mean, the top 5 will be within a quarter of a tenth. I mean, it's like I said, if you're a half a second off in TA2, you're usually not going to be top 10. Which road racing, that's pretty incredible. With all the options and all the different things going on. Obviously, like a Daytona road course, for example, they get a lot more spread out than Daytona Oval, for example. So for like 10 or 15 guys, road racing to be within a half a second is like the days where the Cup Series at Bristol was 2/10 front to back. Yeah. Same scenario, where it's extremely competitive. Like ARCA was in its time, where they had, I remember one year they had 80 some cars at Daytona. Yeah. I think that was their height, that was their record, where they literally had to send home a full field of race cars. Like, wow, because there was that many cars available. Pretty cool thing to be a part of all that.
So we have covered pretty much from A to Z, almost. But there's
a
some
few things in there, here and there, maybe.
there's some people we probably need to touch on, and like your dad and Jen and your mom. How important have they been to you?
Oh, I mean, everything. It's everything to me. Everything. Yeah, they've went through a lot with me. I mean, there's been a couple pretty bad wrecks as the Daytona thing, and there was actually a pretty bad one that I left out at Talladega. We bought a car from Vern Slaw, which was a former Tim Steele car, and the thing, and had Grady Humphreys helping us, and the thing just was amazing. Ended up having an issue qualifying, starting in the back, but we were like headed to the front, set the fastest lap of the race, and I run over debris and just knocked the wall down. I mean, terrible hit. And it was that was one of the first times where my mom was like, you probably don't need to be doing this. That type of racing. Kept doing it. And then they had another issue in 05. Got caught up in the big wreck that happened at the front when the race went into the nighttime, and it was pretty intense. That's when I broke my wrist in 05. The last one where my mom and my father were like, okay, no. You're not doing this ever again, was with the Bobby Gearhart accident.
Okay.
Like, okay, that's it. Like, we don't ever want you to go around that type of racetrack, restrictor plate racing ever again. And I respect that. So it's pretty. I actually have more fun shooting down through the infield at Daytona, which I mentioned that years ago. Honestly, I swear to God, John Darby, who worked for NASCAR for years, he bought our building in Mooresville. And I remember telling him one time, we were at the bar together because he visited and liked the food and the atmosphere at the bar that my ex-wife worked at. And there was one time I remember saying to him, he's like, what are we going to do about this July race, the July Daytona race? No attendance. They made it a night race, so it wasn't so hot, and that worked for a few years, and then it just slowly. And I'm like, what you need to do is go shooting down through the infield, run the IMSA course. And he thought that was just hilarious. Well, and
now
they're doing
they've
it.
done
Charlotte Roval, same thing. I said, you guys should be doing Charlotte Roval. I said, every oval that you guys go to twice a year in Cup, I think you should do the Roval one time. And he was like, him and his buddies, they thought it was just the funniest thing they've ever heard. And it happened.
And here we are.
Yeah. And it was very cool times. Yeah. It was interesting being down there for so long.
Black open top seconds at R7, the white open top BMW C3, and they now make their way to turn 4. Both those riders falling a little bit off the pace of our second place running back driver. He tells you what he's doing. Granted, that battle track was last time live. They go under braking down into 6. Get to the horseshoe as they come around. Now, inside P4, they found what he was doing. And they were able to bring that off the way back up. Blackie, and then also Jared Dilley, not running Peter Norton. They get away down the back straight and over quick.
As the leader comes through turn 8 and then turn 9, I'm wondering if things were just had a cold start on tires. I think it's going to need it so. Maybe we're just going to come back and the tires will come back in. But as he further goes by here, he's got about 3 car lengths. a wider front nose on that Prater car, so it looks like he can push a little more there, which allows the 71 off the turn 10.
I just say we're three.
There's worse habits, I guess, right?
I hope so.
A car lane separation going into turn number 1. Reynolds tightens it up.
But I have some of those too. I can enjoy my massage.
Off the club, they're just within his tire tracks right now, not breaking out of line.
I've never had this in this car yet. Shit. Oh, shit.
Jesse Prater is now with a 1.7 second lead because backgrounds John Handy with our backers got second spot. So Prater flew away.
I would worry about that 2 second gap that we had earlier in the race. But now, as our leader.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
just got run over. The guys got way too impatient. When they went below the curve to do it, probably it should be, in my opinion, it should be legal, but Trans Am would call it out on it.
It looks pretty forward on this side too.
This is why we're all bipolar. I think it's just worse that we've been here a week, and that, you know what I mean? It makes it that much worse. So we've been here since fucking last Sunday. A little bit, but as I was getting to Jordan, I'm getting hit. I find it. As soon as I saw him, he was shooting around.
So AJ Henriksen and I have been doing a series of interviews here. This is going to be the wrap up to it. AJ said, why don't you come on to Indianapolis, the GT1 class, the SCCA Runoffs in 2021, and appreciate the invite, but not exactly the way we wanted it to go today.
Yeah, it didn't go so well. Started out good. We've been here a week now. First day of qualifying, we were on pole. Second day of qualifying, we were second. And the third day of qualifying, I got a little greedy and I was up about 8/10 and put into the data and got to the fence a little bit out the corner and missed the pole by 3/10. But still, we started third. Been a really solid weekend until they dropped the green. So we went to turn one. The pole sitter he was a little bit slow getting in there, so I cleared him getting into one, and then he got drilled from behind and drilled into me. So it was turn one, lap one crash at the SCCA Runoffs.
What's the plan the rest of the year?
We have one more race at our local track, Autobahn, so we'll do that. Get ready for next year with some TA2 races with Boris Said, and I'm gonna do some GT1 and some TA races myself. And, we're gonna have some fun with Boris next year.
So what you got your eyes on eBay for the museum?
Oh yeah, I just actually got all kinds of stuff. A couple of helmets the other day just showed up. A few more programs, believe it or not. I didn't actually have a couple of programs. I think I got every program now. USAC stock car program from Milwaukee from 1956 until 83.
Wow.
Almost all of them. I got two or three I gotta get.
Don't leave that shop door open.
Yeah. And I got your list of what you have.
Yes, sir.
So I got a couple doubles and stuff I'll give you.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, well, and I thought I had more and I don't, but those fans out there, NASCAR was not the only game in town for a while. USAC stock cars were arguably probably bigger than them in the early 60s.
I agree.
Because you had all your Indy 500 winners, and you in the Indy 500 made your career. You could have stopped that day and been famous for the rest of your life.
Right.
Exactly. So you come and run a USAC stock car race, and everybody was begging to have you. But the Autobahn is the last race of the year.
Yeah.
And then the winter, just rebuilding things.
Yeah, we got a lot to do actually. We got quite a bit to do in the off season, which I like an off season to get caught up. I don't know how I could do it. I don't know how the West Coasters do it. They don't ever have a break. They just race and race and race, and we at least get a break to recoup and get better. And engineer and stuff like that. So,
2022. What's your first race?
our first one is Sebring.
Oh, okay.
Sebring, yep, Florida. That was in early March.
Oh, I thought it was February. Okay.
Or is it
early
late
March.
February, I think, yeah.
You know better than I
I think
would.
it's the last weekend of February, actually, yeah. So, yeah, that's our first one.
Well, sir, I appreciate it. It's been fun. We'll have you covered on YouTube there for a while, and maybe next time you'll run more than one lap if I show up.
Sounds good.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks a lot.